Hello. Sorry. Good morning. What week are we on? Week 37, I think. 37. Starting to feel a little bit like fall out here. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's a nice, cool, slightly damp morning. I've got my basket and my clippers, and I'm checking the garden before we go to my parents' house later. So, see if I can show you. Got it a bit wrapped up so the birds don't get it. Ooh, there's a good batch. Good thing I tried to pull that off. I wouldn't have even noticed those down there. Grapes, wild grapes. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on them, and when there's a batch that's almost completely ripe, I go ahead and pick it off. They don't ripen necessarily very evenly, but we've got tons of wild grapes around here, and most of them you can't get to because they're way up in the tops of the trees. But this tree fell down, so I can now reach the grapes. I think I promised to show you our trail. So this is our shed, and it did have vines growing all the way up around it, but we cleared those out mostly. But see how fast these things grow? I cut this down to the ground, seriously, like a week and a half ago, and it's already a foot tall. Need to get some like herbicide or something for them. But cleared off the back of our shed, which as you can see was well covered in vines of various kinds, and cut a hole through this ginormous batch of vines back through into the woods. So we can now easily, well, fairly easily, it's not completely cleared yet, there's still roots and twigs and things, but it goes back and around through the woods. So that's fun. Anyway, yeah. So, picking wild grapes to add to my jelly collection. I'll probably go see if I can find any more beach plums while we're at my parents' house today. If you don't know what beach plums are, they are a wild plum that grows here in Delaware along coastal areas. They like the sand and the salt. They're very tiny little plum, basically the same size as these grapes, and they're seriously like 80% pit most of the time, which means you need a lot of them to do much of anything with. But they make great jelly. They're not so great for eating fresh, just because there's not much to them. But they're good for making jelly. But in recent years, they haven't been super productive, which is due to the weather and things that people have done to the beach area where my parents live. They've kind of changed the ecosystem a bit, and most local people don't appreciate it too much, but that's a different story. Point being that there's not enough to actually make a whole batch of beach plum jelly this year, but I've picked as much as I can find, and I'm adding it with the grapes and my extra blackberries and some random cherries that were left over during the summer, and some random strawberries. And when I get enough random stuff, I will make a big batch of mixed berry jelly, because my kids have been eating a lot more jelly than they used to. We've been doing a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So anyway, week 37. See, If I can show you, this bed is nice and cleared out, and it has lots of seeds in it. So, as you can see, we've got lots of little seedlings. This is my one beet that actually kind of was doing something last year, and I left it in there, so we'll see if it gets any bigger. And I have a row of radishes and more seedlings popping up. There are radishes in here and turnips and Swiss chard. That's my one left from last year. It's looking really happy now that the weather's cooled off a bit. My hollyhocks, I'm worried about them. They should be blooming at some point, but all the big leaves fell off, and they dried up, they fell off, and they were replaced by these teeny tiny leaves, which look so pathetically stunted, and there's no signs of a flower stalk, and I don't know what happened to them, but I'm very sad. Anyway, there's zinnias. Zinnias. I love zinnias. I'm planting a big flower garden in front of the house next year. I mean, I'll still have flowers in the garden itself, but planning on a lot more flowers next year. Hello, Mr. Bumblebee. My cucamelons have finally gone crazy. In case you don't know what cucamelons are, they are, let me see if I can find a nice big fat one. That's not a big fat one. That one's pretty good. So they're a gherkin, which is basically just a teeny tiny cucumber. Smaller than like a pickling cucumber. So they can get a bit bigger than this, but not too much. They're kind of grape sized, and they're crunchy. And slightly lemony flavor. Not a melon, it's a cucumber. They're also called Mexican sour gherkins, and they take forever to get going. But once they get going, they go crazy, and they just get covered in everything. And look, I have gotten like 6 flowers out of this year. That's better than none, right? I'll make like one batch of blue lemonade with them. This is Thai double blue butterfly pea. And honestly, I think they just don't do well in our area. I think it's our climate. I'm not really sure why, because other things that are native to Southeast Asia do really well for us, but not these. So, I'm not even trying to save seed because they don't bloom enough for it to get cross-pollinated and make seeds. So I just pick them off and dry them out for a batch of blue lemonade someday for a tea party or something. It'd be fun. Yeah. So I've got lots of seeds planted. I started some things indoors, and then like 2 weeks ago maybe, and then now that it's cooled off and we've got a good damp week for them to adjust, I've moved them outside, and they're looking pretty good. They've been out for a couple days now, and they're looking pretty good. In that batch I did, here, I'll show you. I had some spinach and some arugula. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy by walking around. Try not to. So that's my spinach. And there's some arugula in there. I've got a few peas and radishes over here. Excuse me. And some lettuce. And the tomatoes are, covered. They're just ripening a lot slower now. And this ridiculous thing, I don't know what it is. I think I'm just gonna give up on trying to grow eggplants for a while. This is an eggplant, and seriously, I planted it back in the spring, and it has been pathetic, half dead thing all summer. Can't get to thrive no matter what I do. And then like 2 weeks ago, the plant started looking happy and it started getting blossoms, and now it has a little baby eggplant on it. And this is exactly the same thing that happened last year when I tried to grow eggplants. Only one survived. It was pathetic all summer long. And then you hit the end of August, beginning of September, and it feels happy again. And then it starts to set fruit, but they don't grow fast enough. And then it dies when the frost hits. So, I don't know. Maybe our summers just get too hot for them? I feel like they should like hot weather, shouldn't they? I mean, like, they're related to tomatoes and potatoes and other things. I don't know. I'm not an eggplant expert. I don't even like eating them a whole lot. Never had them growing up because my parents don't like them. And I learned to eat them in China. And I did like them for a while. And then I got some food poisoning from eating a dish that had some. And I had, well, it was not a very fun night after that. And now the smell of eggplant just is like, ugh, that's nasty. Because they have the very similar flavor going down and coming back up. So, sorry if that was too much information for you. But yeah. But my husband likes them, so if I grow them, he'll eat them. Maybe someday I'll get over my aversion. But it just seems like I can't really grow them right now. So if they ever grow someday, I'll have eggplants. The beans are still going at it. But with the weather change, they've started setting seed more quickly. But that's okay, because as I've mentioned before, these are related to cowpeas, which means you can take the dried seeds and put them in a jar and use them in like soup and stuff. I've got a whole pint jar full, and I've got a whole basket of them inside drying out the rest of the way. And I'm gonna have a whole lot more too, because they're just all over the place. My lemongrass is doing good. This video is getting really long. Sorry. I'll wrap it up, I guess. So, I wanted to mention I have a ginger root that is sprouting, which, in case you didn't know, is very unusual in America, because usually they treat them in such a way to kill bacteria, which also basically kills its ability to regrow, which happens with a lot of fruits and vegetables, especially if they come from out of the country. When they bring them in, they kind of sterilize them to kill off anything that might be coming in with it, but it also kills off the plant, which is why organic, locally grown is so good. So a lot of times things like that, if you try to grow the seeds, they won't grow. Like if you get avocados from out of the country, as opposed to, say, California, a lot of times they've been treated and their seeds won't grow. Or if it's tomatoes from out of the country, if it's out of season and you get tomatoes from out of the country, a lot of times the seeds won't grow, things like that. Which is why they recommend getting like actual seeds and not saving seeds from store-bought vegetables. But for some reason, I have one that's actually growing. So I'm going to try and grow it in a pot. And then maybe in the spring, I'll see if I can put it in the garden and see what happens. So I'm going to be doing that, and I guess I ought to finish picking things and get my kids dressed. They're eating breakfast. And we'll get out of here. And if I find any beach plums, maybe I'll make a quick video to show those to you. So that's all for now, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye.